Okay, so next question. Yeah, from this end, it's gonna be the question for ULTRADYNAMICO.
Okay.
Yeah, so, can you tell me why you decide to start making tires?
Yeah, I think we've always been obsessed with. I mean, tires are the coolest thing about the bike because it's what matters the most. It's where the ride starts. You know, it's the contact patch with the terrain, and so it's always been tunable to like in like an analog sense, where it's still very simple but complex at the same time. Nuance. You know,
And I think we wanted to see a certain tire on the market that we weren't seeing at the time.
Right.
We had loved tires. We've always talked about tires together since we raced road together.
I see.
And I think that we just looked around at what was out there and we realized that like not a lot of people in the bicycle industry at the time were obsessed with them, and there weren't a lot of other tire brands that were just
they're like the big brand. There's a lot of the big brands that doing the same thing.
There was a lot of misses and not a lot of people that felt the same way as us about tires.
For me, when Peter Weigel, JP Weigel, is a builder in my area in Connecticut, and he was doing some really cool stuff on Flickr. And I would follow him on Flickr, and of course he lived nearby, and was doing some really cool stuff, converting Raleighs, like Raleigh Internationals and competitions, into 650B Randonneering bikes. And in America, this was like we hadn't seen these bikes in ages. You know, this was something that was, you know, no one knew anything about. And I think I could accredit him to bringing that to the public view in the early part of the, like 2010 or so. And so he was building these beautiful bikes, and they took 650B tires. And he worked with Kurt Pacenti to do, after shaving down a bunch of Grenbois Etris, to make those Perimotos, which are a little too thin, but it's a really fast, light tire. And they were so cool. The first set I got of them were in 38s, and I had converted a Surly Pacer.
I see. Wow.
And I remember calling up Peter Weigel and asking if he had any 650B wheels he wanted to sell me, and he got kind of excited and said, "Oh, well, what are you converting?" And I said, "Oh, Surly Pacer," and like the phone went silent. And he was like, "Well, I guess, the Pacer, and I guess, not like a French, like beautiful, like thin tubed bike like what he likes, but I was doing something." So he obliged, and I started talking to him more and more, and he got me really into the fatter tires and things like that. And so I loved how that 650B by 38 Pacenti Perimoto like weighed like nearly, because of how thin it was. We used to call them like ballerina slippers. But because of how thin it was, it weighed like comparable to like a 700 by 25.
Yeah,
and,
so light.
And so you had like this cushion of air that you could ride on without the weight penalty. We still are weight weenies. Like I like lightweight stuff, and so especially in the wheels. And so I don't want to be rotating around these big hulking. I had been touring on like Big Bends or what was it,
just
heavier tires like Schwalbe Tourguard, like big heavy tires, and I was sick of it. And so I wanted to try. On my day rides, I wanted something lively and quick and smooth. And I loved how, coming from road and getting into more off-road riding with drop bars, I loved the feeling of the fatter tire and all of the stuff that we know now that we were just kind of figuring out then. And it was much more of a small brand thing, people bringing these tires to market. And so we had the idea of doing something a little bit more like off-road specific, like a little bit, not necessarily like smooth dirt roads, but kind of, in New England, we call them class 4 dirt roads, which is like really chunky, like back road, like ATB back road type stuff. And we have lots of roads like that, and connecting those roads together into like some smooth gravel here and there, some quiet back roads. That's what I wanted a tire that we could do. And so to connect all of it together, and which is exactly what we ride in New England and Connecticut, not my country style. So Patrick and I had always, had ideas at the past that we would give away for free to people, but we never were able to come. We're never good at the follow through, and so we were like, well, you know, we talked about tires for years. Let's give it a try, and we emailed Panaracer, and
they've been so nice to work with. And I think that they, you know, listened to what we wanted to accomplish and heard our vision, and I think that they were interested in it, and it felt like it was different and unique, and they wanted to see if they could collaborate with us. So we got very fortunate when we reached out to them. And it's been just a great partnership with them. So we're very, very thankful to them.
And that they took us on in the first place. I think that was we didn't know it was it was a shot in the dark, really, you know, and just an email, and so we'll see how it goes. And they took us on, and we met some amazing people over there that have made our dreams come true, really, you know. And
awesome.
So to be able to make those tires, ride those tires, and like look at your bikes and have, you know, it's a beautiful,
and to see people riding them
all over the world.
It's so cool.
So cool.
It's the best.
On the
It's the best
Instagram,
feeling.
I look at our, you know, people who tag our tires, and it's everywhere. And you're like, oh, this is so incredible. And the connections that you make, you know, meeting you guys, it's like it's just it's beautiful. I just think that our part of the bicycle industry, we get to make it what we want it to be, and I think we're doing something. You know, everybody here is doing something entirely different than what is the mainstream narrative, and so we get to do this cool thing and have fun doing it, and we're being creative, and I think we've got a good thing going. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, okay. So, here's a question. How do we choose the best gravel tire from your lineup?
Good
I
question.
think that's a hard question too. We get asked that in emails and DMs quite a bit, but I think you have to think about where you live, what you ride the most. Okay. And I think that you need to think about how much dirt you ride versus pavement. I think that those, and then you got to think about whether you enjoy riding the pavement and a little bit of dirt, and you know, you want to just kind of survive through the dirt, or you're willing to suffer on the pavement to have premium enjoyment in the dirt. I think that question is something that everybody has to answer for themselves.
Do you want to underbike? Do you want to overbike? You know, it's all about, that's what's great about having all these different bicycles, you know?
But
And
for
tires.
the people that don't have all those bicycles, I think you should think about where you live. I think that the terrain that you live in and the way that you ride and the parts of your rides that you enjoy the most, that's how you should choose your tire.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it.
So, you know, we started out with just 650B tires because we didn't see those on the market. That's what we were excited about creating. And we eventually came around to doing 700C tires. And I think that a lot of, especially in America, that wheel size has kind of remained. I think in Europe, there's still a lot of 650B riders. But I think in America, a majority of people ride 700C because they have those wheel sets already. They're transitioning from road to gravel. And so
you get those American gravel, like the big long races.
Yes.
And there's a lot of roadies coming into it. And they're used to that 700C wheel size.
I see.
And I was I hadn't ridden 700C much since our road days, and since I had like just pushed that away so much, I hadn't really given 700 a chance for a while. So I've recently built up a bike with the 700 by 42, and of course I love it. And it's a whole nother. It's just barely slower than a road bike, you know, but you could still do everything you need to in the dirt. But to Patrick's point, if I'm in a place where I like to ride trail more than dirt or road, I want to be optimized for the trail that I'm riding to. I want to say like all of our tires are for riding to a place, doing that activity, and then riding home, like not necessarily, you know, compartmentalizing the categories or anything. So you could ride gravel on all these tires. And to certain people's preference, like, you know, a 700 by 42 or like the Mars might be what they're more comfortable with. But if I had to pick what my favorite gravel tire is, though, I would pick the Kava. I really like I really like the fast,
Yeah.
how it rolls fast, but still has that just a little more contact, more grip than a slick, because you got those little massaging micro knobs within the file tread that I feel like really, especially with how flexible the race casing is, everything on top just kind of, it just completely mold. If I run it at a low pressure, it just kind of just sticks to the ground, just the way I like it.
Yeah, I think also too, people should consider their experience, where they come from in cycling. If you're new to riding gravel, you might feel more comfortable with some knobs for some control to the corners, a little bit better braking traction. Riding something like a file tread, for some people who are newer to it, you get used to a little bit of float in the gravel through the corners. You don't panic when you start to slide a little bit, because you trust in the fact that you're running. If you're experienced, you trust in the fact that you're running good pressure and it'll grab.
Looser conditions too. We like to switch it up. We actually designed the Cava and the Rosé together.
Yeah.
And we designed it to also be run as like a mullet setup with the smoother tread in the rear with the Cava, and then running the Rosé in the front. Because when you brake, your braking traction is in the front. All of your weight surges forward, and then when you're pedaling without the brakes on. I ride with the brakes on to build my legs up a little bit more. But when you're pedaling without the brakes on, your weight is in the rear. As everyone knows that their rear tire wears quicker than the front, and so you don't get the rolling resistance penalty of a knob in the rear, and you could still get the braking traction and all the control in the front. So I run that setup.
And when you think about it in the dirt, it's very rare that you wash out a back tire.
Yeah.
It's much more common to wash out a front tire. So if you have a little bit of shallow knob in the front, it just gives you that little bit more control through corners that makes people feel better. But then that file tread in the rear runs really fast. If you live in an area with like a lot of pavement to get to a little bit of dirt, I like that setup because it's just so fast on the pavement. So and the sizes too, if you're lucky enough to have multiple wheel sets or a bike that works with multiple wheel sets, the 700 tires, the 700 by 42 is just a faster size. But it doesn't, to my mind, it doesn't handle as well as a 650B. So I like to ride my 700 wheel set when I'm on just kind of more open, gradual turning dirt roads. When I go in the park and I ride just single track, or with a ride with a lot of single track, I'll take the 650B wheel set because it just handles so much crisper and faster on trail. And then the tires are a little bit larger. You just have more, it's just more comfortable on trail. The 700 wheel set is definitely faster. And if I was to ride like a gravel race, if I was to go out and try to race,
or like a long distance.
Or long distance, I would take the 700 tires for sure.
Cava is your favorite.
That's my favorite.
What is your favorite?
It's really hard to tell because it kind of depends on what I'm riding the most and like the bike that I'm into at the moment and the season that I'm in. So
this is not your favorite tire. This is your favorite gravel tire.
My favorite gravel tire. Okay. That's a tough call. It really is. I really like my 650B wheel set in the summer, in the middle of the summer on single track. And I like that Mars tire. I really do. And we have a new tire coming out. It just shipped last week. And it's basically a 27.5 by 2.2 version of this file tread. So it's a really fun, fat file tread. So we'll run that in the back of a bike that has big clearance. So run that in the back and then the Mars in the front. And you have this really fun setup on the trail. So I think that maybe that new Cava.
That's good. We've had just the prototypes to ride. But that is on the Crest Romancer. Having it's a perfect size. The frame is built around that 2.2 basically. So that 650B by 2.2 Mars in the front, Cava in the rear.
A lot of the newer gravel bikes will kind of clear that. I think the Sklar bike will clear it. Open has a version that'll clear it. There's some of the carbon brands, like Open will clear that large a tire and 650B in the rear. So the prototypes have been so fun.
So that's your favorite gravel tire?
That's my favorite gravel tire right now.
Okay. Ooh, big chunky daddy.
That is.
Chunky daddy.
I'm gonna try the fat of Cava on my Sklar.
It's gonna be really nice.
it's good to hear. So you are working on prototype. The
Yeah.
model.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Nice. Okay, so yeah. Lastly, yeah. So, and is there anything else you want to tell audience who know the ULTRADYNAMICO?
Mhm.
So, any message for the ULTRADYNAMICO fan?
Oh man, just thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for
We love seeing pictures of people riding the tires all over the place. That's really the best feeling about
Yeah.
doing this brand.
Yeah.
Is meeting people that are excited about the tires and
This brand is just the two of us and our friend Troy, who does the shipping.
it's a
And so it's cool to
So the guy who are in the front.
Howley Bones.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
Howley Bones with the claws. Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, it's just cool.
so it gives us a lot of joy that people are excited about it. So thank you. That's the message.
So yeah, thank you for your time.
Yeah, of course. Sorry we talked so long.
Yes, sir.